Hey everyone, I'm Adam, and I'm working on a sci-fi Metroidvania vaguely inspired by Hollow Knight and Cuphead, which isn't a Metroidvania, but imagine if it was. After having played arguably way too much Elden Ring and getting over my exams, it's time for a new Cieron's Escape devlog. So, after the last episode, I did what seems to be becoming a habit of mine, doing some small tweaks to ease back into the work. This might be boring, so slap dislike if you're bored, or just skip ahead in the video. I'm gonna try to be quick. I refactored my dev console code. Previously we had a million if statements, now we have this instead. We also have a help command now, so I won't have to remember all the commands. In the previous episode, I promised we'd make some nicer UI in the next episode. So I did. Might not be that good, but it should be better than the default one. We can improve it in the future if necessary. I also upgraded the options menu with a bunch of tabs and more options. I changed my save system a bit so that the settings file is saved as a JSON rather than binary. This way it's humanly readable. And then I encountered some issues where the settings randomly refused to load properly. I tried to debug it for a while, and I figured the issue must be caused by the temporary variables that I used to store the values before clicking the apply button. And then I came to the realization, I don't need the temporary variables in the first place. The UI elements already store the values, so I can just grab those values from them when applying the changes to the save file. This probably shouldn't have been much of a discovery, but who would have thought? I was over-engineering things. I didn't wanna use drop-downs for my resolution settings or anywhere else, cause it's kinda whack when you're trying to navigate it with anything other than a mouse. So I tried to make some custom solution, but then I threw it away because it wasn't great either. I thought about making a slider for the resolution, which I felt was a bit weird, but then I remembered, Minecraft does this too. But then I ended up throwing the slider away as well, because I was worried that it could get weird. The max value of the slider could be different depending on monitor, so I wouldn't know what the default one should be unless we make the biggest resolution be index 0, but that's kinda weird. In retrospect, you might be able to just save the resolution itself rather than the resolution index, but whatever. So I went and made a custom UI again. You select the button and press left or right to change the resolution. It's like in Hollow Knight and every other proper game. Thinking about it now, maybe I should use this custom UI instead of toggles to make it more professional, less random looking. Anyway, I've also been working on a new tile map for a space station level, which would be the first area of the game, and then the second would be an alien planet, and the third area for the final act would be something else. Although, maybe it would be more climactic to start the game somewhere deep and then to ascend to the space station in the final act. That's basically what Silksong is gonna be, right? Speaking of tiles, I said in the first episode that I'm making ugly levels with ugly tiles to remind myself that these aren't real levels yet. But I changed my mind. We need to start making stuff look good. So after all that, I casually imported the 2D extras package, even though I wasn't necessarily planning to do that, and I started messing with rule tiles, cause I figured they'd make building levels with tiles much simpler. Anyway, since I was messing around with creating new levels, I figured it would be a good idea to make sure the game saves what scene you're currently in, and when you load, have it put you back in the correct scene. Since we're trying to make some good looking cool stuff, let's make some laser traps. I tried to make a laser shader following a tutorial by Gabriel Aguiar Prod. Pretty simple, let's see how it works.
Ability card activate! Flare blinder!
My eyes. What the heck? I remade the shader like 4 times. By the end of it I could almost make it from memory. My laser just turns into the freaking sun if I power one too many times. And once that happens, the only way to undo it is to delete the nodes and restart. I figured this must be a bug with Unity. I noticed in Gabriel's description that he's using Unity 2020. That has to be it. I'm a caveman who still uses Unity 2019, for some reason. But I managed to get the shader to work by simply being careful about when and how much I power. Or maybe I could just upgrade Unity, and that would solve my problems. My friend also told me that I should upgrade, but well, I'm gonna procrastinate on that for a while. So I started making those laser traps. I made it so that you can set the weight and shoot times on them individually. but sinking them turned out to be hard. And even if you set it up right, it randomly breaks a few seconds later. I came to the conclusion that I should do the smart thing and make a central laser controller script that controls all the children traps. The difference being that instead of each laser trap counting down individually, the countdown for all the traps happens in one update function, which actually fixed the issue for some reason. I made a sweep mode and a switch mode, where every other laser shoots at a time. The delays are also calculated by the laser controller with a formula. Took a bit of thinking to figure it out. For sweep mode, we set the wait and shoot time for the first laser trap, then for the rest of them we set the delay to the wait plus shoot time of the previous trap. We also have a haste variable which we subtract from this. Increasing haste causes multiple lasers to become active at the same time. This is just more of some fancy visual thing though, and doesn't really serve much of a purpose. For switch mode, we simply double the wait time for every other trap. I tried to pick out a laser sound effect from the Ultimate Sound Effect bundle. And it sounds terrible. I thought maybe I should do some trickery, where only the farthest laser makes a sound. Or where we calculate the average position of the lasers and play the sound there. Then I came to the realization that the reason the laser sounds terrible is because my sound manager script is scuffed and we're playing dozens of sounds at the same time and we never stop looping them. After having tweaked my sound manager script, it sounds pretty good. Alright, it's about time we made these lasers actually do some damage. There's probably an easy way to do this. You just manually put a box collider trigger on the laser and be done with it. But I need to over-engineer this crap so that you can make the laser shoot in a weird shape and the hitbox is adjusted automatically. So let's make a for loop that goes through the points of the laser and does a box cast. But it would be a good idea if we could see those box casts for debug reasons. I'm kinda too dumb and lazy to visualize it myself, so I'm gonna do something out of character. Nice code you've got there, Solid Alloy. Mind if I... Man, these hitboxes look really weird. And it's acting strange. I can walk into it, but it only damages me if I jump. I added a bit of controller support and menu navigation to procrastinate having to work on the lasers. Around this time, I also updated Unity, so now I use Unity 2021. Maybe I could have gone for 2022, but whatever, this will be fine by me for a while. I also started using VS Code instead of Studio, since my friend has been telling me to do that for a while. To further procrastinate having to work on the lasers, I started making a custom particle system. A reverse particle system. We spun the particles in a circle, and we move them towards the center, resetting them once they reach it. Except, there seems to be an issue with particles not resetting once they reach the center. I struggled with this for like an hour. Turns out, I normalized the direction vector before checking if its magnitude is close to 0. Therefore, the distance will always be equal to 1, I guess. Funny, I think I even questioned it earlier if I should be normalizing the vector at the beginning of the function or if it will cause issues. And then I just figured, it will be fine. Then I forgot it and it indeed became an issue. But it's okay now. Well, we've got a custom particle system now that sucks particles inward. Let's take a moment to appreciate the fact that when I used the checkpoint prefab as a particle, it randomly created this eye shape. I also made an orbit mode where, as the name suggests, the particles orbit around the center as they are sucked in. Although the particle system isn't perfect yet. Changing the color of the particles is really clumsy, since it requires you to create new prefabs and new materials. Putting trails on the particles also has a weird effect, because the trails are not cleared properly when the particle is reset. The particle system also loops infinitely and there is no way to make it a limited lifetime, so these are things that we'll need to improve in the future. One time I saw a tutorial where the guy used some attribute to make it so that you can instantiate a prefab with the right-click menu in the hierarchy, but I've no idea what the attribute was or what video I saw this in, and I couldn't find it on the internet, so I guess I won't be using that. Anyway, something else we could do to telegraph our laser traps is to make some aim lines. I tried to make a shader that scrolls a texture. Had to look up a Brekis tutorial to see how that's done though. With that finished, we now see where the lasers will shoot. Not quite sure how well this fits the aesthetic of the game, but we'll leave it for now. Let me know in the comments what you think about it. So, actually getting back to the lasers, I did some experiments and I figured out how to properly use the Boxcast function. Turns out the distance parameter is basically added to the size parameter, and that's why it was acting weird. If I input 0 as the distance, it works perfectly fine. Except we currently don't have anything to prevent the laser from dealing over 100 damage per second to the player. Sounds kinda similar to some dogs in Elden Ring, doesn't it? It also has a similar effect to the spikes in Blasphemous. To fix that, I gave the player some invincibility. I was wondering if I should toggle the iframes from the laser trap script or from the player's take damage function. With the former, we'd be able to specify the duration of the invincibility depending on the damage source, but it would feel kinda weird to control the player from an outside script, so I went with the latter solution, giving the player the same amount of iframes regardless of the damage source. We can rework it in the future if necessary. I also started keeping track of the player's position while they're on the ground, and when they fall into the laser, they get reset to the less grounded position. Just a little tweak to make it not instant, and perfect. Now, why not add some more polish to the laser traps? I wanted to add the growing laser ball to telegraph when it's gonna start shooting, and I was gonna animate the scale with lean twin, but oh. Seems like there's a limit to how much twinning you can do at the same time, and we've gone beyond this limit. I guess I could fix this by increasing the max amount of twins as the console is suggesting, or just write my own code to animate the laser balls. So, I figured out the formula that would let me increase the scale to a given size in a given amount of time, and then we gradually add this number to the size of the circle in the update function. And something is wrong. Transform.local scale assign attempt for circle is not valid. Input local scale is infinity. After a bit of a headache, I figured out that if you divide with 0, the result is infinity. And since the denominator sometimes happens to be 0, apparently the game shit itself. So I added an if statement to check if our wait time is more than 0, and then all was good. I was thinking that I could add the sound effect for when the laser trap is winding up, but I felt that could get pretty annoying, but I might still try it in the future. There was an issue where if you fall through the laser and touch the ground, you'll be reset in front of the laser and keep getting hit by it. I fixed this by decreasing the frequency of the ground position updates. I made an option on the laser traps to manually set whether they are horizontal or vertical lasers. And then I made some checks on the player's position to make sure that they get knocked away from the laser. I was worried that this could lead to some awkward situations, getting knocked in the wrong direction if you're too close to the laser, but it turned out to be surprisingly accurate. Around this point in time, I also made mini checkpoint objects. When the player touches these invisible triggers, they update the active mini checkpoint on them, and when you hit a laser that's set to mini checkpoint mode, it puts you back to the active mini checkpoint's position, rather than the less grounded position. With this, the lasers are actually done. Now, what should I do next? Study for my exam? Start working on something exciting? Make a devlog? Drink and get depressed? Friend's idea, I ain't no alcoholic. Well, the correct answer is go and make some variants for the laser traps. We have double size and quad size now, and I also started making a new demo level, but this is just some random fun, not a real level yet. I also made the discovery that you can actually put materials on your tile maps. This is exactly what I needed. Surely gonna come in handy in the future. I changed the start position of the laser on the bigger laser traps, and this caused an issue where you can fall through behind the laser. So I added some colliders to the bigger laser traps and also put the no friction physics material on them. Now there's no escape. If you fall, you will hit the laser. Unless you have the wall slide ability. I changed the player's collider from capsule to box collider, and this caused some issues, which I then fixed, but apparently I didn't record footage of any of this, and this devlog is getting pretty damn long anyway. And also, I'll have to work more on the player collision in the future, so we'll skip this topic now and get back to it in a future episode. And lastly, I added some polish, for no reason at all. Showing this game off at my school exam. So I downloaded a pixel font from dafont.com and added it to the game. and then I had to make some adjustments to make it look right. Maybe this is a sign that I should use auto size on my text a lot more often. Speaking of font, do you have any idea how much more polished the game feels if you change the font? Damn, so professional. Well, this font is just a placeholder, probably. I will likely try to make my own font in the future, or try to look for a different font, or keep this one after all. Also, Will You Snail by Jonas Style Roller had an option to change the pixel font to something more readable. I like that. Got to implement a setting like that for myself in the future. I realized that the title of the game looks pretty cool with this pixel font, but I have a logo that I carefully designed, so I got to put that in the main menu. And it would be great if it was glowing, so how about I try making a shader for my UI images that does that. Well, I made the shader. Look at it, it does work. In scene view. Once you change to game view, it looks scuffed. I tried to find a solution, and someone on YouTube Answers suggested simply adding a glow effect to the sprite in GIMP. Well, that's disappointingly simple. Guess I'm gonna do that for now. Although it would be good to know what was up with the shader. Being able to put shaders on UI elements sounds like something that could very much come in handy for the future. But well, we're done for now. I can already feel it. This is gonna be a long devlog, Adam said to himself while writing the script. Also, I can feel my voice getting kinda messed up, said Adam while recording the end of the script. Next episode, we're really gonna get into some exciting features. Or maybe I really should stop making these promises. Anyway, remember that exam I previously mentioned? With that done, it's gonna be time to get a real job soon. And if that happens, I'll really have to adopt the DevTech lifestyle. But until then, hit like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're interested in more Cieron devlogs, tell me in the comments that I'm cringe, and I'll see you next time.